morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you again. Thank you so much for joining me on a Saturday. I know sometimes it's tough to get up on the weekend. You're very welcome. So I think I know most of you, but just in case I don't, my name is Steve Williams. I'm the interim chief of police right now. So we don't have a permanent chief because our chief left in October of last year. And the city hasn't decided what they're going to do with the permanent chief, so until they do, fill the seat and do my best while I'm here. So that's me. I've grown up in Turlock, lived here all my life, and through all the school systems, and did a whole bunch of assignments coming up. I joined the police department when I was 15 years old as an explorer, and I am 49 years old now, so that's how I was.
Next year's your big one.
Next year is the big one.
That's dramatic.
February 1st, so it's coming quick. So this is an opportunity for me to just be available to people in Turlock and answer any questions that you might have. I don't have an agenda. I have nothing in particular I want to talk about. So this is just an opportunity to be available and open to answer any questions that anybody might have. I will talk just real quickly about the board, just because I like to do that every time. So up here is our status board, and Saturday being what it is, it's not real busy right now. So the screen itself is split into two sections. The upper section are the officers that are on calls, and the lower section are the calls pending. So on the upper section, you can see that there is a suspicious vehicle in the area of East Canal. And where it says units, there are 2 units assigned to that. So 2 officers are on a suspicious vehicle on East Canal. 1 officer is on an assault and battery on West Linwood, and A2 is me. So I'm here at the police department on a special detail. And then on the below section, we have 2 calls pending. We have a private investigator. Anytime a private, not anytime. Most times when a private investigator comes into town, they call our dispatch center just to let us know what kind of vehicle they're in. They don't tell us what they're doing. They just say, we're going to be in the area of, Golden State and Alton in a black Ford SUV. So that way, if somebody calls them in as a suspicious person, we might still send somebody out to check, but at least we know that it's a private investigator. And then the other call is a vet check for animal control. So those are the calls pending right now. And as long as I get to be your interim chief, I plan on doing this at least once a month. Just again, as an opportunity to let people ask any questions that they have and be as open and transparent as we can. We're looking very much forward to next Tuesday, which is National Night Out. We have about 31 neighborhoods that have registered for the event. And each neighborhood that registers gives us an estimated number of adults and kids. So if you combine all of the adults and kids within the registered neighborhoods, we have right around 2,000 people participating in the event all across town. So we didn't get to do that last year because of COVID. So we're very much looking forward to it this year. It's going to be a good thing for us to get out and get neighborhoods together and get neighbors talking to each other and getting comfortable, and they'll have visits from the police department will come out, and our SWAT team and our K-9 and the fire department joins us, so it's just a good thing. We're looking forward to it. So with that, I'll just open it up to any questions that anybody has about anything. Yes, ma'am.
Because I don't see a place to pin it up or anything, so I'll have to hold it. I have just 5 quick points to mention. Oh, I'm going to here so they can move that in so they can see. I know the police department is aware of this because when I spoke to the neighbor involved, he said, I know you called the police, which I told him I hadn't on the neighborhood thing. But so that he said the police have come. The thing is, this is Kroll. It comes into Tuolumne, stops, it ends. Goes past Brown School to Monte Vista, so this is the area right here. Between Campbell and Berry, there's 2 houses, and the one house puts his big, huge trailer that holds his race car. And it blocks, it's fine when you're coming down Minnesota, you can see, when you're coming down Kroll, you can see, when you come onto Kroll from Tuolumne, you can see. But when you come out of either Campbell or Berry, your vision is totally blocked. So, and I finally did speak with him recently. I said, why don't you put it on the side? He said, well, that's going to slow, that's going to be a problem there. I said, it's in his driveway. I said, but that's your problem to deal with. And I said, and people have to slow down when they come to the end of the street anyway for the stop sign, or they have to slow down to come into the street. So either way, they will see it on the side. This is completely blocking, and I did part, when we come out of Campbell, he said, look, you can see the corner, you can see cars coming. Yes, you can see them coming, but then there's a huge, the block long of the two houses, you are completely blocked from seeing cars once they're there. I've almost been hit 4 times because as you come out, you look, okay, there's no car. As you come out, all of a sudden you see a car coming and you can't stop because you'll get hit, so you have to punch it and move on when you're going to that side. I talked with a neighbor on Berry thinking, well, maybe they don't have a problem because it's on their side if they're coming this way. And they said, no, once they can see way down between the truck and the house, or the truck inside, you can see for a while, but once they come up closer where our street is, they can't see. And so there's a concern both ways. Also, school is starting pretty soon. There's going to be extra cars, extra children walking that area. The fog will come. So I'm very concerned. Let me just go through my points real quick. Okay. Oh, and it's not just residents that come down these streets. People are avoiding Tuolumne because it's speed bumps. So they're coming down our street. So they're having to deal with this that way. School's starting soon in the fog. Now, I was told, the owner said, there's nothing we can do because there is a 72-hour thing that he can keep it there and then he can move it. And he's done it. He said, so because of you, and it wasn't me, I had to pay for a storage unit, $150. And I said, that's not my problem, that's your problem. But I said, so he said, I don't know, we'll find out if that's true, but I'm wondering if it's, isn't in effect, even if it's a traffic hazard. That's my concern, because it's a definite traffic hazard. The other thing is, the last thing, and I told him when he said this, I said, you just showed your character. When I said, okay, what if someone is hit or killed? And his comment was, that's their problem. And that just showed me right there, and that was the end of our conversation. And I said, I'm going to present it here. So it's a severe traffic hazard, and he doesn't care. He seems like a nice guy. I've never talked before, but when I said, move it over here, no, I don't want to do that. It's affecting both of these, anybody coming up these streets. Total traffic hazard. So.
And I also live on this street, and I have almost been hit several times. So,
and I'm sure we're not the only ones. But we thought it was serious enough. We don't get involved in a lot of stuff, but this was serious enough that it really bothered us. Especially if you're aware of it, because he said, oh, they've come to my house several times, and I know I'm fine for 72 hours. I'm a homeowner. I'm young. I'm going to be here. That's fine. But this is a traffic hazard. I'm very concerned about it, and that's what we presented today.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me know. So, a couple of things. It's a pull behind trailer, right?
Yes.
It's a trailer that gets picked up like
And
a
it's
pickup.
higher than trucks,
Yeah.
pickup, and it's longer. So that's the problem, high
So
and
there's a
long.
couple of ways that it could possibly be dealt with. One is, well, first of all, if it's a trailer, it has to be registered with the state of California.
I'm sure it is.
Pay your DMV fee.
I'm sure it is.
Get your little sticker and all that. So as long as it's a legally registered vehicle, it has a right to be on the roadway for up to 72 hours.
Right.
And it has to be moved every 72 hours. Otherwise, it's subject to a citation, and then we come back 72 hours later and we can tow it away.
Right.
So, assuming that it's a legally registered vehicle and that it's legally parked, he's correct. It could be there for up to 72 hours
But
at
if
a
it's a
time.
traffic hazard, they know, have the police come out of those streets and see for themselves. People can't see, when the trailer's not there right now. So.
You know why?
72 hours.
Oh, he just moves
He keeps
it.
it, yeah, he moves it every 72 hours.
Well,
So the other way to possibly deal with it is through an engineering, so through an enforcement perspective, right now without knowing anything else about it, it is legal for that vehicle to park on the street for up to 72 hours. So until the vehicle's registration expires or there's some other code violation from an enforcement perspective, there's not a lot we can do. From an engineering perspective, if it is truly a traffic hazard, there are things like if the traffic engineers, which is not part of the police department, okay, so a civil traffic,
Through the
city hall, and I can pass this information on to them.
Okay.
The civil traffic engineer, if they determine that it's a hazard, and hazard, I know you could say it's a hazard, and it probably is because you live there, but the legal definition of a hazard, if it meets the legal definition of a traffic hazard, the city can paint that particular curve, so that parking is not allowed, let's say more than 30 minutes at a time, or 15, or paint it red completely so no parking is allowed at all. That's not a likely situation to
No,
occur.
I want to park
But it
as
is a
regular vehicles, just not that trailer.
Yeah. So there may be some kind of engineering solution that we can come to either through, again, if it's deemed to be a hazard, through painting the curb a certain color, or perhaps,
Get that severe that he can't even park his own vehicles out there.
perhaps there could be some, there are only a few residential parking zones in Turlock where residents have to have a permit to park in the area. So if one of those are established, limits can be placed on that, like no motorhomes, no trailers, if it's already an established residential parking zone, which that is not. There's only 2 in Turlock right now, so it's an extreme measure. I don't know that if you feel it would rise to that level.
Yes?
But it's another opportunity. So one is through enforcement, which right now
It doesn't count.
we
We've already been to the house several times.
72 hours, it's got the registration. There is no law being violated, even though residents may believe that it's a hazard. If it meets the definition of a legal traffic hazard, we could do it through an engineering component, like I mentioned, either painting the curb or establishing a residential parking zone, or we already have speed bumps on Tuolumne, and I recognize, I used to live in that area.
Yeah, thank you for those.
Too many. Yeah, that's what you went down our street.
Your street's dead end in Hampton, on the other side?
Yes.
Yeah. So I know what you're talking about, what part of town you're talking about, but what I will do is I'll share your concern with our own traffic unit in the police department and with the engineer, the traffic engineer, just to see if anything can be done, and then either now or after the meeting, if you'd like to give me your name and number, actually I'll give you my card, you can just email me, or
We'll stay long enough just to tell you afterwards.
just so we can.
Also, he said, why don't I just go down the other way, like up to Tuolumne and come up that way? And I said, so then I have to go even closer to him, so I go down a block, over the block of Berry, over to Tuolumne, and then up, so that's 2 extra blocks that I'm traveling just to avoid this trailer. And I said, why should I do that? That's your problem to solve.
Does he live on,
It is on the
Kroll,
corner.
or does he live on Berry? Does his front door
He
face
faces
Kroll?
Kroll, faces Kroll.
Is there space available on Berry that he could park if he wanted to?
He's not close to Berry, he's close to Campbell.
Campbell.
Yeah. Well, that's what I suggested. The thing is, his driveway is on Campbell. And that's why I said, just park in front of your driveway.
Is the trailer too large to park in his driveway?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Over the sidewalk?
Oh, yeah.
So it's a large trailer.
It's a semi-long trailer. Yeah.
It's like a semi.
He's got a race car.
Well, if it's a semi, that's a different story.
No, it's just his trailer. Size-wise.
Yeah.
Okay. Talking like 42 feet?
I would say.
Okay.
It's huge.
That's another thing. So only certain length of vehicles are allowed to be on residential roadways. So that might be another thing that we can look into.
Write that down.
I mean, we're just worried for our safety, but how about people that aren't aware?
Because it's blind, it's blind.
But also, like you said, the children.
Yes, and school's gonna be starting. Yeah. And the cars can't see to get out of the way.
Mothers are some of the drivers in the school zone.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I got Kroll between Tuolumne and Minnesota, travel trailer, and like I said, I will talk with our traffic unit and see if there's any type of enforcement thing that could be done. And then I'll also pass the information on to the traffic engineer, just to see.
He said the police have been there several times, and And so I know you can't do anything
Yeah.
that way.
We've been there several times, it makes me think that it's probably not going to be an enforcement thing, otherwise we would have.
Right.
So maybe the engineering solution might be.
Find something, yes, I appreciate that.
So if before you leave, I get your name and number, just to make sure to pass it on to the city hall people?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely, thank you.
Welcome, Mills.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm fine.
Good. So, anybody else have anything? Any other questions? Anything you want to talk about? Yes, ma'am.
I have a cannabis question.
Okay.
Can you just tell us what is legal to do as far as growing it in your home?
So it is a California law, and by California statute, so there's local ordinances, the city of Turlock, there's county ordinances, the county of Stanislaus, there's the state codes for the entire state of California, and then there's the national codes. So the rub is, it is still illegal federally, regardless of what the state says, regardless of what the county says, regardless of what the local municipality says. At the state level, the state has legalized marijuana to the point where marijuana can be possessed by an individual in personal quantity amounts, which means it's the officer's burden to prove if you have whatever quantity of marijuana, it's in excess of your personal use. And there's no set, number of ounces or grams or anything else. So it's the officer's responsibility to present to a prosecutor who would then present to a judge. Because the language of the law is written the way it is, and it's vague, there's not like a definite cutoff that says, if you have 1.5 pounds of marijuana, that's beyond personal use. Okay. So that's thing number one, which is just possession for personal use. Thing number two that I would mention is growing marijuana. So without a doctor's note, in California, individuals can grow cannabis up to 6 mature plants or 12 immature plants. So if you have more than 6 what is defined as mature plants or more than 12 immature plants, that is still a violation of state law. A caveat to that is if you have a doctor's note, the doctor declares how many plants you can grow. And if a doctor says Steve Williams can grow 100 plants because he has a medical condition that that's appropriate for his use, then that's what we have to go by. So technically it would be a defense in court. We still have the 6 plant and 12 plant standard, but the defendant in that case would present a doctor's note saying, the doctor says I can have 200 plants. And it's technically still a violation of the law, but it's like it's a legal excuse or a legal exception. So because of that, if somebody has a doctor's note, even though it still is technically a violation of the written law, we would not arrest, because we know we wouldn't win in court because they have a doctor's note. Beyond that, so that's personal use and that's personal growing. Beyond that, the state has now authorized retail cannabis dispensaries as a legal entity in the state of California, and in the city of Turlock, we have 2 of them right now. So there's one on West Main and there's one on North Golden State, and both of those retail establishments can legally sell cannabis and cannabis products without violating any state law. And again, the rub here is federal law still says no, but there is no federal prosecutor that is willing to take on a local case. Okay, they're dealing with federal big things. There are state prosecutors that are willing to take on state cases, but not federal prosecutors willing to take on federal cases. Unless, we participate in regional illegal drug sweeps, if you will. And if we take down thousands of pounds of marijuana, that might be a case that a federal prosecutor might be willing to take on. But they're not going to be willing to take on Steve Williams that has 7 mature plants instead of 6 mature plants. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, the other part of this though is
And
the.
Steve Williams doesn't have any plans. No plans here.
Do they have to be inside of the building or can they be outside?
They can be inside or outside. Outside cannabis growing is legal, as well as inside cannabis growing. Now, local ordinance can place restrictions on that, either at the municipal level or at the county level. Currently, there's no restriction for outside growing, as long as it's within the 6 adult or 12 immature plants.
So it's basically the smell issue that would. I don't like it either.
You know, Chief, last month when I was coming down West Main, coming home from work, and it was like cooler nights, you could smell the weed a lot more. And it's just, it's sad, it's unfortunate that our visitors that are coming downtown, what are they, thinking of the city of Turlock or Platte City? Because it is strong. That, especially on cooler days, nights, the odor is very intense. And I understand that because I have a neighbor across the street that, it's been happening the last 4 years, so. And I know there's an illegal grow somewhere. But,
Well, we do have a very active special investigations unit, is what we call it. It's a unit within the police department. It's 4 police officers and a sergeant, and among other things, they deal with illegal drug growing and use and sales. And so, if you're dealing with an issue in your neighborhood where the smell is overwhelming, or it's it's inconvenient, or it's unpleasant, or whatever, I would encourage you to leave a tip for, or you can give it to me and I'll do it for you. Leave a tip for our special investigations unit, and they will go out and do an investigation. And it could be that they have more plants than they're allowed. And we do search warrants regularly, probably weekly, on locations that have plants in excess of what the state allows, and they don't have a doctor's note, and they don't have authority from the state to be an official manufacturer. We do that all the time. So unless you know for sure that they have less than 6 adult or 12 immature, I would suggest you leave a tip and let us look into it. It might just be that they have more than they're supposed to, and when that happens, the Special Investigations Unit conducts their investigation. They have to write an affidavit for a search warrant. They submit that search warrant to a judge. A judge either agrees with the officer or doesn't. If the judge agrees with the officer, the judge actually orders the officer to go to that house and remove those plants. And then we do, and we destroy it. So, if you're burdened with the smell of cannabis in your neighborhood, and you think it's as a result of growing, please let us look into it for you. If it's people smoking cannabis, marijuana in their house, inside or outside, there is no law against that. What they cannot do is they cannot smoke cannabis in public. So you can't walk down the street like you can a cigarette and smoke marijuana. You can smoke it in your house, you can smoke it in your front yard, you can smoke it in your backyard, but you cannot smoke it in public. You can't go, well, we can't smoke cigarettes in bars either, but anywhere that's open to the public, it's illegal to use cannabis unless there's special permission from the state. So kind of like there are hookah bars now, okay? The state will give permission for retail establishments to sell it, manufacturing establishments to manufacture and cultivate it, and then personal use kind of permission for people to go into an establishment and smoke it. Technically, that's open to the public, but it's by the permission of the state. So the point is, they can't walk down the street and smoke it, because that's how they're open.
And they sell it.
They cannot sell it from the home. Nobody can sell it from the home unless, again, by state of California law, they have a permit. So the state of California will issue permits, or has the ability to issue permits to sell cannabis. which is what these retail establishments in town do.
But they normally would not give a permit to somebody living in a residence.
Absolutely not. To an individual, no. Definitely not. And just a kind of side note to that, there are 4 dispensaries authorized within the city of Turlock. 2 of them are here and up and running. One is on West Main, one is on North Golden State. The other 2 are not. So there are still 2 dispensaries that have not either identified a location where they want to operate as a business or have not renovated the location that they've identified to the point where they're ready to open for business. So we have 2 right now, and eventually we're going to get 2 more in town that are legally authorized with all the proper permits and authorities and everything else. So, does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. Please let us know so we can look into it and see if we can help. Yes.
I wanted to say thank you for the way that the city is handling the issue of the car. I don't know what they're calling
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
In the Tilly, that
Yeah.
area there.
Yeah, we were out there again. I was out there Wednesday night, and it is dangerous, and it is illegal.
They're coming from out of our town,
Yeah.
from what I understand.
Yeah, I would say, confidently say a majority are coming from out of town, just based on the number of stops that we do. So when we know that there's going to be a sideshow, as long as staffing allows, and on this Wednesday, I authorized overtime. A lot of people don't like overtime, but it was necessary in my opinion, so I authorized it. We asked for assistance from CHP, so they sent 5 officers from CHP. We had a number of officers from Turlock, and enforcement oftentimes isn't the answer, but we have to do something. We could not continue to allow that to happen. So we're going to keep on it. We've identified a pattern of a place and a location, a place and a time frame over the last year of where these things occur throughout town, and we're going to aggressively go after it.
And we're just the lucky little town that have chosen.
But no, that's all over the county. So, like CHP came to help us last Wednesday, and the month before we hit it pretty hard also. Actually, 2 months before. So 2 months before we had Modesto come and help us, Ceres, the sheriff's office, but we do the same for them. So we'll go to Modesto and we'll go to, so it's not just her.
Well, the part that makes me nervous is once they get on the freeway,
Yeah.
how they just drive so unsafe, and innocent people.
What seems to happen is a local jurisdiction, Turlock Police, for example, will put the pressure on them, and they'll go somewhere else until that jurisdiction puts the pressure on them, and they'll just move from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and find somebody that's not willing to find. They go where least resistance, exactly. Yeah. So on Wednesday, we issued about 65 citations. We made an arrest.
Where was this?
This one's Tilly's,
Yeah, right
Olive
there,
Garden,
Olive
Dick's Sporting
Garden.
Oh,
Goods.
same place.
Yeah. So in about a 3-hour period, from about 7 at night till about 10 at night-ish, about 6 at night to 9 at night. Because at 9 o'clock, so here's what happened. About 6 o'clock, a whole bunch of cars started showing up. And CHP and Turlock Police started pulling vehicles over for vehicle code violations. And we took a zero tolerance policy. So if those listening, if you got a ticket that night, I apologize. Sorry about that, but we did take a zero tolerance stance that night, which means if you had tinted windows, if you have a brake light out, if you have a broken windshield, if you don't have both license plates, things where officers would normally have the discretion to either write a ticket or not, they wrote a ticket that night. Okay. So at about probably 7 o'clock-ish, the vehicles started gathering in the parking lot of Tilly's. By about 8 o'clock, there were in excess of 200 vehicles in that parking lot. So they're backed into the parking stalls. They're mostly younger teens and adults, and they were out of their vehicles, kind of walking around and just having a good time. So the good thing is, on Wednesday of this week, there was no sideshow. So a sideshow means that somebody's driving a vehicle and they're either spinning out of control, they say they're in control, but they're doing donuts in the parking lot, or they're spinning their tires going straight, intentionally exhibiting speed or something like that. So none of that happened on Wednesday, that I saw anyways. What did happen is they started playing loud music, okay? They started revving their engines, which is an annoyance to the businesses and the customers, and there's a neighborhood across the street and the neighbors don't like it. It was loud, and it was inappropriate for that time of night in that location. So at about 9 o'clock at night, somebody set off illegal aerial fireworks.
I heard
And you
that.
could see them up in the air and exploding. And so you got this group of 200 cars with about probably 300 people, and in the middle of it is these illegal and dangerous fireworks that are going on. So that's the point at which we got in contact with the property, the person that manages the property, and said, hey, can we shut this down? Because we can't just shut it down. It's not our property. We have to have permission from the owner or the person in possession of the property that will allow us to clear it out. So when those fireworks lit off, that was enough. We got permission from the owner of the property, the manager of the property, and then we ordered everyone in the parking lot to leave at about 9 o'clock. And luckily, they complied. We gave them, this is, you're trespassing on private property, you're no longer welcome to be here, you have 15 minutes to leave. And to their credit, they did, all of them. We didn't make an arrest, number one, because of trespassing. They somewhat orderly moved to their vehicles, got in their vehicles, got in the line, and left. So, the investigation from the illegal fireworks, I'm not going to say too much other than that is an ongoing investigation, and I believe we might be able to identify who did that. If you haven't been by the parking lot, I think they've been removed now, but we're going to put them back there again as we position 4 surveillance towers. So we contracted with a local company to come out, and it's like a pole camera on a trailer that is monitored at a remote location. So we had an officer at that remote location documenting everything that was happening from those 4 different locations. So I believe we're going to be able to, I hope that we're going to be able to identify the person responsible for setting off the fireworks, and it's an ongoing investigation. And we're going to keep after it. This isn't a one-time thing. We need to keep pressure on to let those know that that activity is not welcome into our life.
Well, thank you, and I also have another point. I was beyond shocked. I was shopping at TJ Maxx, I believe it was Tuesday. I was standing in line, this young, I wasn't really young, but got in front of me with a cart just piled high. Purses, all kinds of expensive stuff underneath, and then she got out of line, and I thought, well, you cut in front of me, I'm not going to make a big deal, I've got time. Well, the lady in front of me said, I bet you she's going to run out the door. She ran out the door with all that stuff, and they said there's nothing they can do to stop them.
Yeah, what an individual store policy is on their employees trying to stop somebody that is shoplifting or thieving in some way is up to the individual business, and some businesses allow their employees to intervene and some don't, so that's up to them. What I can tell you is, much like the cannabis laws in California, the state of California passed a law about probably 3 or 4 years ago that theft under $950 is now a misdemeanor. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So they can just keep doing it.
Which means it used to be a felony, which meant when the store gave the employees the authorization to catch these people and hold them for the police, it was actually a felony violation that somebody could go to jail for. Now, even if the store gives their employees the authority to hold people or a private citizen steps in and does it for them, or whatever, when the police get there, if the dollar amount is less than $950, guess what?
These thieves just
We
know.
write them a ticket and release them right there on the site. Now, they eventually have to go to court, and they eventually have to answer for the crime that they committed, but we no longer take them to jail. It is now a misdemeanor crime instead of a felony. Misdemeanor crime typically means you might get probation, you might get a little bit of a fine, you're almost definitely not going to do, time in jail. You might do a little bit, unless you have multiple offenses, they can stack up. So that might contribute to the reason why a business might not authorize their employees to step in and grab, because then it's going to take staff time and,
Well,
they're going
and
to
liability for the business, well, that's,
Sorry, you had a question also?
Yes, there's a house near my house where there's lots of activity going on, like cars stopping just a little bit of time. There's people come out. It's just constantly going, so it's very suspicious.
Yeah.
My neighbors have said the same thing when I moved there, that what do you do about that? Or what? The reason I noticed is because the corner comes towards my house, and so at nighttime, I wonder, why is that car not going? Why is it stopped in the corner waiting and waiting with its lights shining into my living room or whatever?
Yeah.
And then I realized after a while, it's waiting for a package.
Business transaction.
Yeah. That's the same thing that our special investigations unit would do. So you can either give the information to me or leave it as a tip for them. They accept tips by phone or by email. And so in a situation like that, what would happen is our officers would go out and investigate. And these are officers that don't dress like this, and they're not in marked black and white police cars. So we would go out and look into it, and if it appears that there's like drug sales going on, I don't know if that's what you're getting at, if that's what you think is happening, we would have to go through the same process as growing marijuana, where we would have to present the facts of what we know to a judge, and the judge would either agree with us or not. If the judge agrees with us, the judge would order the officer to enter that house and look for drugs. So until we get a judge's order to enter somebody's house, man's home is his castle, and they're free from government intrusion, unreasonable government intrusion. And so we would have to get a warrant, but we're certainly willing to do that. That's our job. That's what we do. So either give me the information and I'll write it down, or send a tip to our special investigations unit, and they put it on the list. Like I said, we do that. They do that all the time. Regularly, they're going to the judge on a weekly basis, I would say, if not a couple times a week, in order to secure a search warrant to either, arrest a person or go in somebody's house or deal with illegal activity that way. And that assumes that we can prove it. If you give us the tip and we, surveil the area and we're there and we don't believe that drug sales is happening, we won't ask the judge. We have to personally believe that this is a crime.
I also have another concern, the amount of trash that's everywhere.
Yeah.
The other morning I was heading downtown, and I can't remember what that little part's called, that's right there, near Sacred Heart. I don't know if it's on
The airport?
Yes. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
strewn with trash. It's like they take it in trash can and dumped.
Yeah, our Parks Department staff is, I don't want this to sound like an excuse, but they are overwhelmed and understaffed. It is the condition of our parks. Like I said, I grew up in Turlock, and they do a great job with the staff that they have, but they don't have enough staff to keep up. I drove through Donley Park yesterday, and I used to go there as a kid, and what Donley Park looks like now compared to what it was when I was a kid, I hear what you're saying. So, parks are the property of the city of Turlock, and Turlock staff maintains those parks. So, if there is trash in a park, I hate to refer this to another department if they're not here, but that is their responsibility. The parks Parks, Recreations, and Facilities Department of the City of Turlock maintains our parks. You can send it to us, and we'll send it to them. I won't speak for them in terms of guaranteeing how soon they'll get to it. They do have regular park maintenance on a schedule weekly. And some parks, I would assume, I know that parks don't get cared for every day. Okay? So a particular park in town might get serviced. By serviced, I mean empty the garbage cans, pick up all the trash. If it has a restroom on site, tend to that facility. Look at the trees, mow the lawns, all that stuff. I don't know how often it happens, but it's not as often as we would like it to happen because we don't have the staff authorized to do it.
Well, I think today they're doing a community park cleanup.
And that would be a great thing. I think that's something the mayor may have started where different groups throughout the community have essentially adopted a park. And it was at a council meeting a meeting or two ago where I think there are still 3 or 4 or 5 parks in town that have not been adopted, but that would be a great thing for a community group that wants to, get together and care for a park and, partner with us in taking the responsibility of making it look like we deserve it to look.
What about our, the exits and entrances on the freeway? Like the trash problem?
Community service, we'll have a community service.
It's starting to look like a Modesto, sorry, but.
Yeah. I know.
Part of it, and then Worcester, not only Worcester.
So one of the issues with when we had an unsheltered homeless and encampment crisis local emergency in town, and that has been adjusted or modified to be an unsheltered homeless crisis. Okay, because the encampment section of the first emergency has been dealt with. There are no more encampments in town, but there is still a homeless emergency in town. These people need help, and the city intends to provide as much assistance as possible. The reason I bring that up is I had the opportunity to lead that local emergency as your police chief, and I learned that there are very strict boundary lines. The on and off ramps of a freeway are not under the jurisdiction of the city. The on and on ramps of a freeway are under the jurisdiction of Caltrans, which is why the guy that was stationed at Denny's, Lander 99, why he was there so long, because that's an on ramp and the city doesn't have jurisdiction over that. We had to partner with Caltrans and get Caltrans to come and clean that area. So we talked about on and on ramps. As a result of this local emergency, we now have a very good working relationship with Caltrans, and they've been very responsive to us, and they've been great partners. But prior to this emergency, we didn't have that. So when we had things like the on and on ramps that needed to have some servicing, we didn't have that relationship that we have now. I will tell you that in this, in kind of managing this emergency, I've learned that the local Caltrans director services, so like the city of Turlock is, a set area. Caltrans director, regional director, goes all the way from Fresno to Upper Stockton. Okay, and so that's a huge area for this one person that has multiple units that are deployed out. So again, I don't want to make excuses, but I do want you to know on and on ramps are under the jurisdiction of Caltrans. And so we can now encourage them. We have that relationship where we can request that they service Turlock a little more than maybe they have in the past, but they've been great partners throughout this thing.
Are they the ones that did all the cleanup along the railroad tracks on Golden State?
Yes,
Because that was a problem.
yeah, we partnered with them, so part of that one along the railroad tracks along Golden State was unique in that some of that was the city of Turlock, some of that was private properties, like individual parcels of property owned by people that don't live in Turlock. Some of that was Union Pacific Railroad property, and some of that was state of California property because it's the freeway and the on and off ramp. So we had multiple levels of jurisdiction and boundaries and authority. That took a lot of doing to get
That's
all
nice
those
to
together.
drive down there and not see all that.
What happened to our homeless organized group that several years ago, that started the cleanup and to get a job and move on?
Yeah.
I know they helped a number of them get jobs, but that was a great idea.
Would love for them to start back up.
We need a couple more
Yeah.
responsible ones, but that means they have to be homeless.
Well, yeah, so the local emergency for the unsheltered homeless crisis continues, and it continues for one of the reasons, or one of the goals of this is to develop a long-term plan. What we did in the first 120 days is by no means a long-term solution. It was immediately dealing with an emergency. And like Milt has shared a couple of times in council meetings, and there are experts that know how to deal with the long-term effects, like to build it first before you go in and make big changes. Make sure that you have capacity and places for these people to go. That's what's being developed now, is this longer-term solution to the homeless crisis in Turlock. So,
But the problem is you have those that will refuse that.
that will what?
Will refuse that. They want to
Refuse,
be
absolutely.
professional,
Yeah.
whatever. And so we're held hostage because, oh my gosh, we don't want to, nobody will like my solution, but that's okay.
Yeah, we cannot force people. They have to want to accept the service. But I feel like we have somewhat of a responsibility as a caring community to provide that service or make those things available, whether it's long-term housing or transitional housing or rental assistance or something.
I agree with helping those, but the ones that refuse and they burn down houses or whatever else they do, I just feel like they do need to be, I hate this word, somebody may hate this word, but interned in such a way that you guys aren't stretched super thin. They're right where they need to be to get the treatment they need, and they're not wreaking havoc in the neighborhood.
Well, we do have a lot of great county partners now that we didn't have before this emergency started. They come to Turlock regularly. And so the city of Turlock, we don't have mental health professionals staffed by the city of Turlock. We don't have social workers. We don't have, Medicare and Medi-Cal and all the county level services. But now we do through the county, because the county comes in at least once a week. And they have, 9 or 10 departments within the county that go out and proactively offer these services, which didn't happen before. So it's a step in the right direction, but we still got a long ways to go.
One thing I've noticed is the reason why a lot of the homeless won't go is because of their pets.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they have. And they know their pets automatically go to the kill shelter. I hate to call it that, but.
Yeah, well, so we have 2 shelters in Turlock. We have We Care, which serves adults, men 18 and over.
I've served them.
Have you?
I've served them.
Yeah, Maris and her crew, a great group of people. And then we have Turlock Gospel Mission that serves men, women, and children, regardless of age. And both of those facilities, if somebody wants to take advantage of overnight services, like shelter services, animals are accepted at both of those facilities. What they won't do at this point right now is the dog or the cat or the whatever can't sleep with the person in the bed. They'll house the animal outside the facility and the person sleeps inside, but they won't allow the person and the cat to sleep together in the bed inside the facility because, there's 50 other people in the facility and it's a dog. For the safety and the liability and all that.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, and I also think Samaritan, the Daily Bread.
United Samaritan. Yeah, Linda Murphy took that over and she's doing a great job out there.
And I have gone sandwiches, and it is interesting.
Anybody else have anything? Yes, sir.
Yes, Steve, I just wanted to make a comment on one of the comments that was made over here, the Dean Air Park. I did walk by there on Thursday because I've been walking 3 or 4 miles. I kind of extended my exercise routine, and it was trashed, really trashed, right by the bench that's right on East Main Street there. And you kind of alluded to the fact that there are not enough park and rec personnel, but we do now have, the voters of Turlock approved Measure A, which gives us an additional $11 million. And I'm curious as to why we can't hire a few more parks and rec people to do like an emergency cleanup, because it looked terrible, like the lady was saying.
Thursday was the day I didn't like it.
Oh, okay.
It was like,
Yeah, someone had just, some mentally ill person had just gone wild. They'd thrown all their, whatever they had and whatever containers they had, just thrown it right all over the area.
Yeah, I've seen it downtown a couple times too.
But I mean, you know, if we could just,
And take the lid off and just throw everything out.
yeah, and that's mental illness, or drugs, or both, probably both.
And I've seen the Near Park thing, I've personally seen it, and then I get photos sent to me sometimes, and I wish that, you know, I want to go out there and clean it up. But, you know, I agree, you know, I think as a person or two that has some type of disorder or mental illness, that, you know, if we can catch them doing it, we would try to get them the appropriate service.
Right, but I think we need to get more personnel in Parks and Rec. I mean, you know.
So what happens is they might do that at 2 in the morning, and nobody sees them doing it.
Well, yeah.
Everyone wakes up at 7
No, Steve.
and goes out and sees that trash in the park all day. So then Parks and Rec staff then have to go out and clean it up. You know, is that what you're talking about, Neil?
Yeah, because I walked by there probably about 9 o'clock. What time did you see it?
I think I went by around 8.
Oh, you were there before I was. I was going to say, I don't know how long it was there, whether it was there all day or whether it was eventually cleaned up. Did you ever go by it again?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I didn't. I know I did.
But it was obvious it wasn't just a matter of someone trying to find something in the trash.
Right, right.
It was like,
I don't know on that particular case if they cleaned it up that day, but, you know, Allison Van Gilder as the director and her staff, they really do a good job, and they really want to be responsive. So if that happens, I would encourage you to call Parks and Rec. I'm sure that they will get staff out there as soon as they can, which means, let's say it happens on Monday. And Monday, Parks and Rec staff are deployed out to Pedretti Park. Let's just say that that's the day that Pedretti Park gets serviced that day. And it only gets serviced once a week, or once every 2 weeks. Allison Van Gilder, or a manager, or a supervisor, or somebody would need to say, okay, Pedretti Park hasn't been serviced in 2 weeks. This is their one day to get serviced. Do we pull staff off of that to send them to the Nair Park to clean it up, meaning Pedretti Park wouldn't get serviced for another? So it's like a logistical thing that would happen, but I'm confident that staff of that department will do whatever they can when they get a complaint or a concern from the community.
it's not me, it's right here.
Yes.
Hi, I'm a mental health provider in Modesto. I'm getting around to the community to find out, talking to police and sheriff to find out what is the city doing in regards to the mental health and collaborating with mental health providers.
Yeah, good question. I wish, so I would love to have a mental health clinician on staff with the police department to actually go out in the field with police officers and see what happens. And, you know, give care and refer appropriately and assess and all of those things. We're not there. We don't have that level of staffing in the police department. What we do have is we have an agreement between the city of Turlock and Stanislaus County Behavioral Health and Recovery Services, that staff from that agency partners with staff from the police department, and they go out and a mental health professional goes with a police officer in a police car, and they drive around town and either respond to calls for service if there happens to be a mental health emergency when those two are working together. That is the unit that we would send, so that there's a police officer to deal with the safety component and a mental health professional to deal with that side of it. because we don't have that training. We just simply don't. So, if there are no calls for service, the mental health professional will typically bring like a list of clients that they've dealt with in the past that list their residents as the city of Turlock, and those two, if there's no calls for service that are emergencies, they'll go out and actively look for these people and kind of do kind of check-ins or checkups, or you know, hi Steve, I see that you're sitting on a park bench today. Is there anything that we could do? Can we, you know, do you need any services? So it's not to the level that I would like it to be, because I would like to have a person or two on staff that's more dedicated, because it is a significant issue in Turlock. But what we do have right now is this partnership with the agency that they do come out and ride with our police officers for the purpose of providing that service.
That's good with them.
Sir?
Yeah, so I've been following, like, incidents involving police response to people with mental illness,
yes.
Especially what happened in Modesto last December with unarmed men, and also last year in Loveland, Colorado. There's been a national discussion happening at the program similar to Cahoots in Eugene, Oregon, and STAR program in Denver, Colorado. And the results for having a mental health intervention program, it saved resources and money for the city, as well as having police officers, because their job is to enforce the law, not being social workers. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
And the chiefs were very impressed with the program because it saves officers time and they're having to deal with the case. Do you think we should have a program similar to Cahoots and STAR here in Turlock? We have care already in place, but we can supplement that program into care as a component, and not just for police department, also work with various agencies and departments within the city. Do you think it'll be possible to have such a program here in Turlock?
I think it is possible, although I'll admit I've never heard of Cahoots or the other program that you mentioned, but I'd love to get with you after the meeting, get some more information. I will, like I just said, we don't have the training and the skill and the expertise to appropriately deal on a, you know, at a clinical level with mental illness. What we do have is every officer in the Turlock Police Department has had something called Crisis Intervention Training, CIT, and a minimum of 8 hours of training, and many of our officers have had a full 40-hour course, and it gives us some tools to deal more appropriately and understanding and recognizing the signs and the symptoms and the triggers and the kind of tipping points and how to interact and communicate with people more effectively, but it's not to the level of a clinician. We do not have that training. So if there is a program out there, I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, because in Modesto they have their Forward Together, and Chief Gillespie is also interested in having a program for that. So I'll let you know more. I'll show you the link for Cahoots. Yeah. And also, if you have time, just call Gillespie. He'll tell you, share information about the proposed programs, how you can implement it here someday.
I appreciate it. We talk pretty regularly with all the chiefs in the county. So yeah, I can reach out to Chief in Modesto and get more information. But if you have more information, I'd like to talk with you after the meeting. Okay. Anybody else? Anything? Yes.
Another way is to contact Josh Harder, who is our representative.
Yeah.
Right now, he is working on mental health issues.
Yeah, I've talked to him before, and he told me that he spoke with various police officers, and they agree with him. They can't handle mental health cases, and I asked if he proposed such a program at a federal level, and he said yes many times. I've been in his town hall meetings.
Good. That's what keep on the reason. And I have one last question.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd have so many things to ask. But I like to use the back way to go to Costco, go down Full Earth, and then go right to Druggies. Now that Amazon is coming in that area, are they going to, how are they gonna deal with all the traffic that's gonna be added? Are they gonna make more lanes, or what's gonna happen?
I don't know. I believe that they are, but I don't want to speak out of turn. That's the traffic engineer. And I think at some point I saw plans for what that will eventually look like, or, you know, what it's projected to look like, but I can't say for sure.
I mean, I think it's a great thing, you know, them coming, more jobs, and
I would be very surprised if that road will look like it looks now when that facility they've got it right.
I mean, it's just,
More lanes, yeah. I know that at some point, Canal goes over the overpass and kind of loops around where Charter is, or where Spectrum, so that canal going over the overpass eventually is going to punch through all the way to where Blue Diamond is now, like all the way through to west to Washington. So that's kind of one side of it. But on the Tuolumne side, where Tuolumne and Tegner is, where you make the turn to go down to Costco, I'm sure that they're going to make those roads appropriate.
that's good to know.
Yes, sir.
I've had a few people ask me what the process is of cleaning up blood after a crime scene, because there's apparently some blood on Broadway by where the shooting occurred a few days ago.
So there are professional, we contract as a police department with professional companies that come out and deal with hazardous materials, and blood could be considered a hazardous material depending on the quantity that's there. So if the police recognize it, we have the option to clean it up ourselves or to contract with another company. If there's a specific location, I would ask that that be relayed so that we can go out and look at it. So those are the two ways: either the police will deal with it themselves, or another department will deal with it, or we do have a contract with a private company if the quantity is large enough to, you know, and it's a biohazard for them to come deal with it.
Sounds good.
Is there another question?
That's all I have right now.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I probably don't have a question, but it's an observation that when we were talking about dealing with trash, and because on my own experience, I went to get some trash to the place to trash.
Yeah.
But I find out it's just a little too expensive to, and I think that's also part of the reason. Maybe the people dump on the streets or whatever because lack of resources. So what I noticed it was just a piece of tire. They wanted to charge me like $30 just to have a particular piece of tire, which I understand. I could understand. But the reason I'm saying is that maybe people who have, some people just want to dump it, probably, yes, period. But some people don't even, like including myself. But when you find if it's 30 tires, it's not what you want. Right. I mean, we dispose tires late at night. So anyway, the thing is, so it is maybe find resources where they can help us to, or find somehow to get those tires and probably plastic. Yeah. Because it's been creating a problem. Because I found out it was end up being more expensive than I was expecting. So that was kind of a, I think we talked about on that regard last time that I told you about.
Yes, yeah.
And that's probably we still not, but maybe people don't have enough, even if they do, but if there's more resources, we might be able to get our neighborhood a little cleaner. Yeah. And even the alleys, and I think the alleys also, even in my house, when we tried to get the alleys, it was like $200-300.
Yeah, I know tires cost more to dispose of, and things like electronics. You have to find a place that's willing to accept like laptops and.
What I'm thinking is they give us like they do, but a little more, like those in the streets, dump everything you have, and maybe share that with the neighborhood, that way we can all.
That's a good idea, yeah.
I mean, with $10, $20 each house, we might be able to put our stuff in.
Yeah, what I've seen.
$30, one piece of tire.
What I've seen at the parks and what I've been sent pictures of at the parks is more somebody going through trash that's been disposed of in a trash can and just throwing that trash out of the trash can. Mel, did you have something?
I just had a comment. We have Turlock Scavenger here in Turlock that has 2 garbage days a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. And I just save my tires because even in my place, and I'm right across the street from a school, I occasionally get tires left there. I just roll them in the backyard. You can take up, I don't know, is it 6 or 10 tires at a time? If you had more than that, you could ask your neighbors to take a few of them. All you have to have is a utility bill, you know, a Turlock, City of Turlock utility bill, and you can drive right in and, I mean, you can take a whole pickup load full.
They didn't do that this year, though. They usually do it in May.
Well, that was probably because of the COVID.
And he was talking about the alleys. I'm curious, what is the homeowner's responsibility as far as their part of the alley or what?
Yeah,
I'm even asking for myself. I try to keep it weed-free, but I don't even really know.
my understanding is the alleys are the responsibilities of the property owners. And so when, you know, we used to have alley, wasn't technically alley cleanup days, but groups of Turlock citizens would go through and clean up alleys, just on a volunteer basis, and that was a great thing. And I'd like to participate in that.
Just don't get involved.
Yeah, but if you have like an abandoned couch, or you have weeds in the alley, or you have something in the alley from center this way and from center that way to the fence line is the responsibility of the property owner.
You know what I find out that can, it happens to a neighborhood more than once, that is creating a problem that has to be fighted. Because like you mentioned, the weed and other stuff, and sometimes we deal with very serious, 2 homes burned or 3 already.
Yes.
And we are on the kind of break that might happen again, because due to what we see, it's just a matter of anything just there, and it just goes, and it can be anybody's house.
Yeah, and
that's
that's
what we more
why
costly than also a tire, or also, you know, matches or whatever, so.
homeowners might get notification or letters from neighborhood services, which is a division of the fire department that's run by the fire marshal. So homeowners might get notices from the fire marshal within neighborhood services acting on behalf of the fire department saying, you got overgrown weeds in your alley or in your backyard or somewhere. That's all part of the abatement program, and it includes alleys. So it is an active program that's managed by our neighborhood services unit.
Yeah, I appreciate what the fact that you were saying that it's responsibility of the owners, which one of the owners was responsible for somebody graffitiing his walls.
Oh,
and now he had to pay for the paint, and he, I think, was almost issued or something ticket for somebody else graffitiing his property. I mean, it's like, you know, you've been victimized so many times.
Yeah.
You've been victimized by the city, by the enforcement, by the criminals. It never ends. I mean, and luckily for us, we don't live like close, but this is the corner. Anyway, all I'm saying is that the good thing that you brought that is your responsibility, but I think in that responsibility, they should help us out somehow.
Yeah.
Due to the fact that what is the retired people, like my folks, they don't have the additional money that they used to make. So, and what is limited budget, and so sometimes it's not that you're not willing, they're older, but they don't have the money. And you know, for the most, we try to help, and some of the kids are out, so, you know. And we try to do as much as we can, but it seems like they kind of winning us in every battle. There's more throwing garbage to the weekend collect. So.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you bringing up the free trash days a couple times a year, because like a lot of businesses in town, Turlock Scavenger is a great partner, and the fact that they do that for free at least twice a year, and you can take, you know, all the tires and all the, you know, debris that you want. It's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good thing that I want to check into it, because you know, I know that we're doing like once a month, a year.
I'm a member of Turlock Shines, and then also love Turlock because we're talking about how people used to volunteer. They go like, you know, alleyways to clean up mess, and then going to the parks to clean up garbage, and doing all kinds of sort of volunteering. Also a good way for high schoolers to get community service credits. We should have more events like that.
Well, I think COVID, that's a result of COVID. And the Delta variant, that's the reason why I've got my mask on. It is here, folks. And I have been vaccinated.
I know.
Yeah, there have been cases where vaccinated people have tested positive after the vaccination.
It's because people are not getting vaccines, which is a personal choice.
They're still mingling masks.
I have a question. What if the high schools could partner with a club that could possibly do some of this cleanup? Because I know they have to put so many hours in for community service.
Yeah, I think that they do, and I think that they have not over the last couple of years because of COVID. But I know like the Key Club and a couple other like scholastic-based clubs will partner either like with a local civic group, like Rotary or Kiwanis or Lions or something like that, and those two come together, and it helps the city, it makes the city look good, beautification and whatnot. The civic club, and it gives the high school student community service credit. So I know that those programs existed, and I'm hoping that they come back now that COVID.
It's kind of going back to normal.
Well, we have about 10 more minutes. Anybody else have any other questions about anything? Let's see what's going on. So now we have a larceny on Vintage. We have 2 officers on a damaged property on Linwood, 1 officer on a disturbance on Sierra, and we have below 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 calls. So that's what's going on in town. We typically, like today, we have a sergeant and 1 sergeant and 5 police officers working. So of the 5 police officers, you can see that 14 up at the top, 14, 12, 13, and 11 are all on a call, which means of the 5 police officers, we have 1 police officer available in town right now. Sorry, you had a question? Very well. So I'm so glad we have body cameras. Our officers are so glad we have body cameras. Mine is on, but it's not recording right now. So the body cameras, I don't know how we did it without it before. It is such a great thing to be able to go back and look at video, and when it's appropriate to sit down with a person and share that video. So for example, if somebody comes in and makes a complaint against a police officer, we have that video right there to be able to show that person what happened. Where I'm struggling personally as your chief right now is I want to release these body camera videos to the public. We make mistakes, we're human, but we do a lot of good work. And if the public can just see what we do through our eyes, I would love to do that. The problem is it has the potential to jeopardize the prosecution of a criminal case.
Yes.
And district attorneys throughout the state have consistently advised local police departments. It's not their decision, it's my decision, okay? But they've asked, please don't release any body camera video of any pending criminal case. And I can override that because I want to share with the public, but I have to balance that against is the greater good preserving the evidence and the integrity of the investigation on the request of the district attorney so that we can have a successful prosecution of a criminal case? Or is it better for me to feel good about releasing video, which is what I want to do, and I've decided it's better to preserve the integrity of the criminal investigation. So I'm very glad we have these. We use them on every case. So there are multiple camera angles, if there's multiple police officers there on every criminal case, and like I said, I don't know how we do it with that. It's kind of like computers. When I first started as a police officer, we had a suction cup thing that we like a pad of paper that we suction to the window, and when dispatch would give us a call, we'd write down the address. But now we all have computers in the cars, and I don't know how we did it without it. It's the same thing with cameras.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the video cam push on the police cars.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's like I think it's like the hand sensor, the body cam.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's enough. I think I get your point. I want to put cameras in the cars. Years and years and years ago, we had cameras dash mounted in supervisor police cars, and then we got rid of those. Well, now that we have these, what I'm finding, kind of one of the downsides is, we bought the version of these cameras that trigger the activation in addition to manual manipulation. So when I push this button, my camera starts recording. If I were to pull my gun out of my holster right now, there's a sensor on my gun that will start this camera. If I flip my lights in my police car to code 3, the action of flipping those lights start the camera without me having to push it. I don't have a taser, but if I pull my taser out of my holster, it activates the camera. If I have my camera activated and another police officer walks in that door, it's going to tell that camera to start. So there's these automatic triggers that happen, which is great, because in the heat of the moment, split-second decision, I may not have time to push my button, but there's no reason my camera should not be on if my gun's out of my holster. So we've intentionally designed it so that every time the gun is drawn, every time the taser is drawn, every time the code 3 lights are put on, anytime another camera is on and somebody else walks in the room, it automatically activates that camera, and it's a great thing. What I can't get past yet is when we're driving code 3, okay, so we flip our lights on and the officer's driving and code 3, the camera is looking at the steering wheel. And so if the officer crashes on the way to the call, or there's another violation witnessed, or if the officer pulls up on scene and puts the car in park, and there's somebody standing outside the car pointing a gun at the officer, we're not going to see that. So I want cameras in our police cars, in addition to having them on our bodies, so that we can record the activity as the officer is en route to the call. So that's kind of one of the next projects that I want to work on, is cameras inside the car in addition to the body cameras. And it's all through the same company. So what happens is these cameras, when we dock them to charge them, it automatically downloads the video and stores it in the cloud. Same thing with the dash mount cameras. It would all be cloud-based storage, redundant backup that's immediately available to the district attorney if they need it. So it's been really good technology for us. Yes. Yes.
Well, since you bring up the district attorney, does the district attorney's office have direct access to your body cam videos, or do you have to release that to them?
We have to give them permission, but they do have direct access to it when we give them permission. So what happens is, when we send a file, whether it's electronic or paper, when we send a file to the district attorney and tell the district attorney, our investigation is complete, please consider prosecuting this case, whether we've made an arrest or not. When we send that file, we also click the button that gives them access to the body camera videos. So the district attorney can't get in our system and just randomly look at any body camera video they want. We have to give them permission to do it, but we automatically do it every time we send them a case to prosecute. Well, I think there's time for another donut. If anybody wants another donut, please do, because otherwise I'm going to eat them all, and that's what we're doing. Anybody else have any final questions? I really do appreciate you taking the time on a Saturday to come and talk with me. It means a lot for me to engage with the community, and this is one of many ways I intend to continue to do it as your chief. And like I said, looking forward to next Tuesday, getting out in the neighborhoods, and if I don't see you sooner,